Hello, guys. Welcome to another episode of the Commerce Lab by Ecomcy, the place of everything related to Amazon FBA and e-commerce. My name is Vincenzo Toscano, founder and CEO of Ecomcy, and today we bring you a very interesting topic, which is actually everything that has to do with sourcing from Mexico. We know it's a very hot topic lately with people trying to find solutions outside of the typical China sourcing. What a better guest, actually, than Amy Weiss. She's actually the CEO of Amazing at Home, where they specialize on anything that has to do with scaling your business on Amazon. She also has an amazing podcast, which actually that's where I got some of my experience from selling on Amazon. So I also recommend it. I'm going to put all the information down in the description. And she's actually also one of the founders of Sourcing a Mexico Trip. So that event, I mean, I can't wait for the next one. It's going to be happening in February. I'm going to be taking part in that event. Can't wait, to be honest. So Amy, it's a pleasure to have you here. How you doing?
I'm doing so good. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm so stoked to have you with us, coming with us to Mexico and getting to experience that as well. Because it's such a cool experience.
Yeah, I mean, for me, to be honest, it would be a pleasure to be there because, I mean, some of my backgrounds in Latin America. Actually, I spent like almost 15 years in Venezuela. So for me, going back to Latin America and provide some value there, specifically in Mexico, teach people about how they can scale their business online is definitely something that I'm looking forward to that. And I appreciate the invite 100%. So, but yeah, before we jump into that, I would like to give you a couple of minutes, so you can tell us a bit about Amy. You have such an amazing background, and just tell us about how you jump into e-commerce and how you made Amazing at Home and all the great things you do so far. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll try to give you guys the short version.
Yeah.
Because,
Sure.
these stories can get long. We do a lot of stuff. So I was in the United States Air Force, and in 2007, I was in college at the same time while I was serving in the Air Force, and I was trying to find textbooks online on Amazon. And,
Okay.
that was a great place to buy used textbooks at the time, and textbooks are expensive.
Yeah.
So I looked and I saw this little button that said, sell yours here. And I was like, oh,
Mm,
I can sell my textbooks here as well as buy them. So I started getting into that. And I started, back then it was like merchant fulfill. There wasn't like this
yeah.
FBA stuff. It wasn't
Mhm.
that big yet. So I just started merchant fulfilling textbooks. And then I kind of caught the bug because I was like, okay, these things are flying, right? Like, wonder what else I can sell. So I started selling like my CDs. I started selling, and most people don't, today kids don't even know what a CD
Yeah.
is anymore.
I know.
Like, nonetheless, a cassette tape or anything like that. But so I started, just flipping everything I could find. I went to like
Mm,
Goodwill, and I remember finding, just looking up in the shopping app,
yeah.
I found a Polaroid camera at
Mm,
Goodwill. They had a whole bin of them, and they were selling on Amazon for like, I forgot, it was something like $80 or something, and I
yeah.
could buy them for $7 each at Goodwill. And I was
Wow.
like, whoa, like that's cool, right? So I just started flipping everything on Amazon and eBay
Yeah.
back in 2007. So I did it as a hobby. Obviously, it wasn't
Mhm.
really a business. And I just continued to do that. And then the Air Force sent us to Hawaii. I know, poor us, right? And
Yeah.
and I started my own Etsy store because I didn't want to merchant fulfill from
Yeah.
Hawaii. And so
Mhm.
I started my own Etsy store. I was painting wine glasses and beer steins, and that was fun. And then also selling those at like local markets.
Mm.
And yeah, so retired from the Air Force in 2018. And my husband, Rashid, also did 20 years in the Air Force.
Okay.
And we have two kids, 15
Wow.
and 13 years old. And
Wow.
yeah, so we're here in San Antonio, Texas. And in 2017, I had an idea for a product because I had a
Mhm.
problem, and it
Yeah.
had to do with cleaning the cat litter box, which is not a fun
Okay.
chore. And
Yeah. For
so
sure.
I just set out to solve that problem, and I created a prototype. And I didn't really know, even though I have an MBA and a couple of
Mm.
undergraduate business degrees, I didn't really know, like, practically how to bring a product from
Yeah.
scratch to market.
Yeah. Mhm.
And I also found that there were not a lot of resources for people like me who are educated and, you know, like we should be able to figure this out, right?
Yeah.
So I just started helping others. I started figuring it out and helping others. And that's kind of how Amazing at Home was born. Is I started writing listings for people. I was writing my own listings. I was doing wholesale, the wholesale business model on Amazon, and I was writing my own listings while I was developing my invented product. And so I just started doing that. And then I helped people sell out of some really saturated products just by offering them in new markets. And people started asking to consult with me, and I didn't really know what that looked like.
Yeah, I know.
I was not a consultant, but I was like, okay, you know, fine. And I just
let's give it a try and let's see what happens. Yeah.
And you know, I really enjoyed it, and it just grew so fast because the people that I was helping had a lot of success. And then I started making my own course. So I was an instructor in the military for all those years, and so I'm very good at taking concepts that are very like hard to understand and breaking them down, because in the military, we had to teach everything to a 3rd grade level, whether it was aerospace technology or weather patterns or whatever. We had to teach everything to a 3rd grade level. So because you have people in the military that are from all different backgrounds, different languages, maybe English isn't their first language. So teaching comes very natural to me. So I created a 60-hour graduate level course called Concept to Launch, which walks you through advanced sourcing strategies. I started taking people to China on China trips, teaching them how to really source, you know, how to really understand how to negotiate and how to find products off of Alibaba, and, you know, how to grow their businesses from the start, how to build brands. And so we've been in business since 2017, and I launched my own private label brands, and then also helped now thousands of other people launch theirs. So I'm excited to be here and excited to continue on this journey of helping people live their dreams.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I've been following your journey for a very long time. I mean, as I told you, when I started in the Amazon journey as a seller, your podcast was one of my daily routines, and definitely your content and the strategies helped me a lot. So that's why I recommend so much your content. And that's why I wanted to have you today, because I know you have so much experience, and especially now that you also jump into Mexico and teaching how to source from Mexico. I know you're definitely the right person to basically give us some tips and you know, provide some advice, because the reality is there's so much content out there, but the quality is not always there. So that's why it's very important for me to bring the people and not the best, right? Now let's jump into the topic, right? Sourcing from Mexico. That's something we're seeing becoming more and more hot when it comes to the Amazon space, specifically when the COVID hit. We know all the issues people were having with China, everything that's to do with the supply chain, shipping, containers, paying 20K per container, crazy stuff like that. And people basically start finding solutions for that. So I know sourcing from Mexico has been a solution for many Amazon sellers. And I would like to start with the first question, which is, why Mexico? Why not maybe, I don't know, Costa Rica or Panama or any country? Why Mexico? Let's start with that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Mexico, first of all, is close to the United States, which is helpful, right? We just have one border separating us, so we can have our goods to U.S. fulfillment centers in just 2 days versus 30 days on a boat or 2 weeks on an airplane, just depending on what you can get, right? So that's the first advantage, you know. And the second advantage and why Mexico is because Mexico has really been developed well in Latin America in terms of manufacturing. So first, you know, the automotive companies moved to Mexico and started building factories there. But really, you know, now it's really been, there's apparel companies, there's, you know, Crocs shoes were made in Mexico, tons of apparel and jeans are made in Mexico, plastics. Mexico is one of the only other places outside of China that does injection molding. So, I mean, when you think of like worldwide, of course you can do injection molding in other countries, but I'm just talking about in terms of like making molds. Mexico is one of the only other countries outside of China that's known for that.
Interesting.
So Every category you can think of, you can really find in Mexico. And so it's really tough though, because compared to China, where we have this giant database of, suppliers, because Alibaba came in and said, hey, build something.
Made it easier, basically.
Yeah. And we don't have that in Mexico yet. And there really hasn't been a need for it yet, because most of the companies that establish factories in Mexico, the company is there. So there's no need for that factory to have a website and try to outsource to all these other, or try to sell to all these other buyers, right? So there's no need for that contract manufacturing business yet in Mexico. Now, it's not to say that it doesn't exist. Of course it exists. They have tons of trade shows. They have lots of stuff going on. So if you want to source, you can go in person and find manufacturers, but we just don't have that web presence yet in Mexico. And so we wanted to figure it out. We're like, okay, people are sourcing from there. I had clients that were sourcing from there already. And I was like, wow, are you serious? This is great.
I'm missing out.
Wooden products, I mean, household products, grocery products, health and beauty. There's every single category you can imagine. Plastics, like I said, injection molding. We had a biodegradable plastics company at our last EVOLATAM trade show. So many cool companies. Another supplier we had makes barbecue grills and barbecue accessories. There's patio and garden. There's, so many cool like apparel companies. There's packaging, there's printing, there's storage, like you name it, you can get it in Mexico. But the hard part is there's no Alibaba there yet, right? Like Alibaba, of course, has a presence. Like you could, Mexican-based manufacturers could add their page to Alibaba, but it's not really, they're about relationships in Latin America. So they're not really interested in having some kind of like shadow presence on Alibaba and having all these people reaching out to them, treating them like China. They want to have those relationships, and they're wonderful to work with. People in Latin America are so amazing. They're just so warm and so fun to work with. And so that is really why Mexico.
Wow. Yeah, that's an awesome explanation. Yeah, I totally agree with you, especially on the last part, the communication, the engagement with them. Yeah, it's in another level. They're so friendly. They're always there for you. I mean, it's such an amazing people to do business with, because I personally do as well. And yeah, experience has always been top notch. Now, you also mentioned something interesting, which is the products, right? So usually when people talk about Mexico, most of them, the only thing they can source from Mexico is like a products made of textile or made of leather or things like that. And I'm surprised that now you bring
handicrafts, like people
handicrafts,
artisans, which is great. There are plenty of those, but
yeah, I was surprised that you mentioned everything about those plastics and all those materials. So I guess one of the reasons why people don't know them yet is because what you just mentioned, it's difficult to create that connection with them yet, right?
Yeah, well, it's really what ended up happening. What had happened was, so really all these factories that are creating, I'm just looking over here at my screen from evolatam.com. I've got, office furniture on here, office supplies, plastics, metals, like jewelry, stuff like that. Leathers, of course, handicrafts, health and beauty, ceramics, foam and synthetic material, apparel, of course, wood products, plush, skincare, beauty, that kind of stuff, right? So a lot of these companies that were producing products were producing locally for local retailers, stuff like that. So what ended up happening was they didn't need to go beyond their own borders.
They had it on business,
Latin America. Like they had plenty of business. But when the pandemic hit, look at all of us. We were all looking for alternatives to China, or we were looking for, just something. We were trying to figure out more storage because Amazon cut off our storage and, cut our restock limits, which just happened again. Thanks, Amazon. Right before Q4. But, we were all looking for that. And what ended up happening as well during the pandemic is a lot of the retailers that manufacturers in Mexico were producing for also shut down. Also had supply chain issues. So now all of a sudden, these manufacturers who were just flying high, had everything going good, we're like, whoa, maybe we should look outside of our borders. Maybe there's buyers somewhere else, so we don't lose our factory, right? Well, it's not easy to just all of a sudden start selling to e-commerce buyers or all of a sudden start exporting. So there's a huge demand inside of Mexico and Latin America for manufacturers to work with e-commerce buyers around the world and to export their products, but they don't necessarily understand the whole process yet, right? It's kind of
missing the bridge. We're missing the bridge, basically.
Yes, and that's what we built, right? We built that bridge to bring buyers from around the world. And not only we have a twofold mission. The first is to connect everybody, but the second is to educate. So not only do we have classes to educate suppliers and teach them about e-commerce, we're partnering with Amazon and Alibaba. You know, we're teaching suppliers there, how can you export? How can you work with e-commerce buyers? Because we're different, right? We're not the same as like a retail buyer, right? We're a little bit different. So, but it's a great field to get into and a great field for them to be able to even list their products, you know, if they want to do something like that or expand their lines. So it's wonderful. And we wanted to provide that education. Obviously for gringos like me and Tim Jordan, my partner, Tim Jordan, it was a huge task. It was a huge undertaking. And so we hired local events companies that are really great at putting on big trade shows in the reason, Vincenzo, that we had to start our own trade show is because there isn't a multi-category trade show in Mexico. So there's like, you can go to huge plastics trade shows and artisan trade shows and all that, but there's no like Canton Fair in Mexico. So we started one because we're like, what do we do? We're going to bring all these people there and like take them to a plastics trade show. That's not going to work. So that's why we started it, is to build that bridge. And we just did our first one in June and it was a massive success. Everybody had a great time. We already have people sourcing now, building those relationships. And we already have a lot of the same suppliers signing up for our next one, which is going to be, we went from Mexico City last time, and our next one's going to be in Monterrey. And just so excited to continue to grow it and continue to connect people and also continue the education piece. I mentioned we taught suppliers, but the other thing is we have to teach e-commerce buyers.
Yeah.
Because we don't know how to source outside of China, really. We don't.
We just went to Alibaba and we think we know how to source, but that's not really sourcing. Just going to a website and making a payment, that's it.
And so it's really important that if we want to, you know, take advantage of other sourcing destinations, and we can certainly talk about the benefits of sourcing from Latin America besides, you know, shipping. And, you know, the location and the relationships, but there's a lot of other benefits too. Labor is actually cheaper in Mexico than it is.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on that. Yeah.
And there's a lot of great capabilities. And like the shipping prices, you're talking, you know, $1,000 versus $10,000. Even when China prices come down, and they're expected to come back down. And I source in China too, so I'm with you guys. Like I want them to come down too. But even when China prices come down, you know, you can still really make up for it. Even if the price per unit is a little higher in Mexico,
it still makes sense.
It still ends up being lower when all is said and done. And what about free trade?
Yeah, I wanted to touch on that because you have those tariffs that you don't have from Mexico. So it's free money there as well. Pretty much. Yeah,
exactly. So you're not, well, now you do have, it has to be 70% made in Mexico, right? In order to take advantage of that free trade. And they look at a few different things in that way. But storage too, storing your products, you can store, there's a ton of storage facilities there, right? But yeah, there's a lot of opportunity in terms of, you know, free trade, not paying those tariffs, not spending so much lead time. You can order smaller quantities. I thought also that when I was just calling suppliers in Mexico and I didn't really go there yet, and I was trying to figure it out ahead of time, I was getting extremely high MOQs and extremely high quotes. And I was nervous about going there in person. And what we were going to find. You know, I was like, man, this is
Nobody's gonna do 500 units like we used to do get in China. Yeah.
I was very nervous about it. And I wasn't sure, like, when Tim and I were talking about it, because we hadn't gone yet in person, and you know, we had done a lot of calls, and Tim's been sourcing from Latin America, from other countries for years, that he had visited in person, but Mexico was new for us. And so, you know, we were like, okay, this is what we know, and this is what is yet to be proven, right? And so we assumed that the MOQs might be higher, or that manufacturers might not be great at product development for private label. Okay. But we were absolutely wrong. Absolutely wrong. MOQs were low for our suppliers that were at the EVOLATAM Expo. MOQs were low, prices were great, timelines were awesome, and product development is awesome. So, I mean, it really blew us away in terms of what we expected based on what we had heard. Yeah. And then actually going there and meeting and developing those relationships, it was night and day difference.
Okay, that's very interesting. And now that you touched now on MOQs and everything, I also wanted to ask you a question, which is around volume, right? So how you feel right now sourcing from Mexico this with high volume? Let's say you're an Amazon seller moving thousands of units. Do you feel they are slowly getting there, or there are already some manufacturers that have that capacity?
There's definitely manufacturers that already have that capacity, right? Okay. It depends what you're looking for. So, you know, we had a variety of suppliers with a variety of capabilities at our first trade show, which was only one day and pretty small, right? We had like 150 vendors or manufacturers there and suppliers. But this next one is 2 days, and we're hoping to do at least 3 times, you know, the number of vendors and expand more categories, everything like that. But in terms of volume, it's just like China, right? Whenever you are sourcing, you want to make sure that you're developing that relationship with your supplier, and you make sure that they can handle your volume, right? So from that first conversation, you know, we're honest. We say, like, this is what I need. And you might be a new seller that doesn't, or you might be developing a new product that you're like, wow, you know, I in the beginning, I need a lower volume, but I want to be able to scale this to X, right? That's all about having conversations with your suppliers. So we do have one of our ladies that just came back from our last Mexico trip, Marcella. We actually did an interview with her. We're going to be publishing it on the mexicotrip.com website. We're just talking about her sourcing story, because she just developed a product with a supplier there, and she just got it in stock. Wow. And we're about to launch it, and it's so exciting. It's been a really wonderful experience. Like, they sent her like 3D videos of the product in development, and they were just so wonderful to work with. She got her sample in 2 days. Like, that's a dream, right? Yeah. That's a dream. Sometimes we're waiting for 2 weeks, right? So, you know, it's been really, really good. But in terms of volume, you know, we were talking about that. Like, what if this is a smaller supplier, and what if they, you know, they can't handle the volume? And I reminded her, I was like, well, your lead time is shorter, and you can ship small quantities. You don't have to order
small budgets, and that's it. Yeah.
So really, like, talk about cutting down your timelines and everything. You know, it's just it's a really wonderful thing to be able to do.
That's great. Okay. I think I had another question, which I get a lot whenever I also advise start exploring other venues, which is the language barrier, right? So how do you feel that is going on right now in Mexico? Do you feel they are acting very fast to the English? How you feel that in terms of international trade now between these manufacturers and gringos, as you call them?
Well, I would like to address 2 things that I know that people always ask. Besides the language barrier, they always ask about safety. So, you know, obviously there's lots of Netflix.
I know. Narcos and so.
Yeah, tell us that maybe Mexico isn't safe. And I want to remind people that Mexico actually has over 1 million expats that live there from the United States. And I'm in a lot of these expat in Mexico Facebook groups. And if anyone mentions safety, like, if like they're so defensive about it. They're like, it's safer than, than where I lived in the United States. Like it's so safe, So of course, just like if we go to Chicago,
it depends where you go.
Yeah, we're not gonna go to a back alley somewhere and go hang out with a
common
drug
sense.
dealer, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's not what we're gonna do. If you're in the city, there's, like I said, over 1 million expats living in Mexico, and what's wonderful about that, and families too. People bring their kids. There's American schools, and so what's wonderful about that is a lot of people speak English, especially in the bigger cities. So you can get by just fine in Mexico speaking English. People even move there without speaking Spanish, right? But how do we address that with manufacturers and on our EVOLATAM trade show floor? We do it with translators. So we have translators constantly walking the floor, and they're in big, bright shirts. And so you can just grab them over. And of course, you can usually start the conversation just fine. There was only a few suppliers that were like, my English is not good. I'm very nervous, and I would be like, well, your English is better than my Spanish, so we're doing well. And then we would just grab a translator, like, hey, translator, can you come over and just help us have a conversation? But it was very warm. And, the language barrier, that's how we kind of handle whenever we do have language barrier issues. The other good thing is, like, a lot of people speak Spanish. So I speak a little bit of Spanish. I understand Spanish. I used to be fully fluent, and when I moved around the world and learned new languages, I kind of lost some of my Spanish. So I'm trying to get it back, but I understand it, and it's really great to have a lot of people on the trip like you, right, are going to speak Spanish, and they just help each other, and it's just a wonderful experience. It's a little easier than Mandarin.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, 100%.
So that's good. And then all of our education that we have on the stage is simultaneous translation. So when you come to one of the education tracks at the trade show, you can put, if they're speaking in Spanish on stage, you can put the headset on and it'll come through in English, and vice versa.
Very nice. Very nice. Good. Yeah, you answer that question perfectly. I like it. Good. So I think just to start concluding today's episode, I usually like to ask if is there any tip or thing we missed today that would add value in terms of sourcing from Mexico? Maybe some things that you would advise for people to avoid, something to add value as the last one?
Yeah. So, obviously, like I said, Mexico is not China. You're going to be able to find a lot of great products there, but you shouldn't expect to replace every single product that you source in China. It just doesn't make economical sense in all cases. But like for me, I have 12 SKUs, right? And I'm able to source I think all but one in Mexico profitably. So that's good, or at least at the same price that I'm currently getting them from China, right? But one of my products is just the material is more readily available in China. So, and it's only made of that one material. So it wouldn't make sense to import it all the way to Mexico and then just have them make it there. It just doesn't make sense. So that's the first piece of advice, is just realize that, anytime you diversify your sourcing, realize that some stuff is going to be great and some stuff isn't. And then you're going to also find a lot of new opportunities that your competitors can't. Because when you are sourcing from Mexico and you're going there in person, and by the way, we also have suppliers coming from Colombia and other countries in Latin America that will be at the trade show. So you're going to get to meet other suppliers as well. And we have sourcing agents there. So in case you're the supplier, that we have a matching program, so that in case the supplier is not there that you need, you're going to get the resources that you need from that. But also note that it's very difficult, as I mentioned earlier, to source not in person. Right? Like people always reach out to us. One of the biggest things that we get when they register at evolatam.com, and you guys can register for free for the trade show. You just got to get yourself to Monterrey, which is very easy to get to. Right. But when people reach out on the website, they're like, can I just have a list of suppliers? And can I just, and the reason we don't list our suppliers on our website is because we don't want them to get bombarded with a bunch of
nonsense
suppliers that are like, oh, can I treat you like China, and can I get contract manufacturing with you, right? We want to build those relationships, and we want the people that come and source in person who are looking for that relationship to get value from both sides. So that's the reason
Yeah.
we don't list our manufacturers on the website. But also note that if you want a great sourcing opportunity from Mexico or Latin America, it is best to go in person. So this is a wonderful time to come with other people who are in our industry and connect. It's inexpensive. Like I said, you can register for free for EVOLATAM. If you want to up your game and come and learn all the things and do factory tours with me and Vincenzo, and you want to do all the things,
everything.
Lots of big dinners and fun things together and just the whole experience, you can go to the mexicotrip.com and you can do the whole 7-day sourcing trip with us where we're also attending the trade show. But either way, dip your toe or go the whole route. Definitely go in person, because just like when I went to China in person for the first time and it completely changed everything for me, it's going to do the same if you take a chance on Mexico and go in person.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it's definitely something you can miss, especially now with, everybody is doing the same thing over and over. And one of the reasons why so many people don't make it on Amazon, because they do the same thing, Alibaba, China, copy paste, and that's it. So, but if you think outside the box, like going to Mexico and meeting the suppliers and really finding things that are unique, I'm pretty sure you have much more chance to succeed, which is awesome. So yeah, thank you very much, Amy. So it's been a pleasure for sure to have you today, and can't wait to meet you in Mexico. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
Bye. See ya. Thank you.